My name is Tamara Frazee and I live in Austin, Minnesota. I have a daughter and a son and 2 grandkids. To tell you a little bit about who Tristan is, he was diagnosed with autism when he was 3. He's incredibly smart, he is incredibly kind, and he has a lot of challenges. It really makes a big struggle in the school environment. 14 days after he turned 10, he was at school. He was not wanting to do whatever they were wanting him to do. When they attempted to remove him from the school, he lashed out at the police. They ended up charging him with 5 felony accounts of assault. He's being brought to a detention center. This was Tristan's school picture in 2017 and 2018, and his big old smile, genuine tan face. And this was his next year's school picture, and you can really see that he was pale, gained a lot of weight, and his smile isn't as genuine. It's faked. Yeah, there was a big difference in him.
Back in 2024, the legislature passed a law that raised the minimum age of delinquency from 10 to 13. So what that means ultimately is the youngest age that a child can be charged with a crime starting August 1st of 2026 is 13, whereas it used to be 10. My name is Sarah Davis, and I direct our Children and Families Division here at the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. Every person who's charged with a crime is required to be competent. It's a constitutional due process right. And to be competent means that you have to understand what's happening in court and be able to assist your lawyer. Sometimes that's about some sort of mental health or developmental delay, but in this age range in particular, 10, 11, and 12, it's consistently about just developmentally, they're not old enough to understand.
I didn't get a call until they were already transporting him. So I grabbed his medications and I, flew down to the hospital to get them his, diagnostic assessment and his medications. A nurse had come to tell me that Tristan said it was an accident and he was really sorry and he didn't want me to give up on him. That broke my heart. I knew that my son, when he was not in those meltdowns, had a lot of guilt. Shortly after that, a doctor came and said, hey, he's not in a mental health crisis. He's calm, he's apologetic. We can't keep him here for a 72-hour hold. And then the officer that was there said, but he's not going home. He's being brought to a detention center.
When we criminalize children, that it leads to worse outcomes. Putting a child in the juvenile detention center, even for one night, has harmful impacts on them for the rest of their life. We see kids as young as 10 years old who have been brought into the juvenile detention center for stealing candy. As in Tristan's situation, where you have a child with severe autism who had an outburst in a school environment and is transported to a juvenile detention center and held there for 48 hours. These have really significant life consequences for kids in this age range.
When he was there, he had a mental health breakdown. He couldn't tolerate the clothing there. He got naked in his room, he plugged the sink, he was slapping himself, screaming. He couldn't tolerate not knowing what time it was. He thought they were gonna forget about him in the room. The one guy that I talked to said he'd never seen a child my son's age in the detention center. When things are denied that they need, that they rely on to feel safe, they get traumatic stress. My son's psychiatrist, he even wrote, it's not a criminal illness. It's not bettered with incarceration. There is no need to deal with this through legal channels and in fact could very well further traumatize. He has the emotional regulation of a toddler in the body of a 10-year-old. He does not have the capacity to understand what is going on with juvenile detention, let alone detention facilities having knowledge and skills enough to deal with a young child with autism. Even the detention center felt that way. It really became like a very quickly unsafe situation for him.
The reality is that we are lacking some of the resources, particularly in some of our more rural communities, right? We don't have all the resources that we need to be able to address the complex behavioral health, mental health needs of children and their families. As systems, we have to be accountable for that. We should not be locking elementary-age children in jail cells behind steel bars because we as system leaders have not taken the steps we need to make sure that the resources that are needed are in place.
Shortly after that, he wouldn't go to school. He was afraid anytime he went to school, he would go to the detention center. I remember the day that I got called by his school, and they said, well, we just wanted to let you know, today was the first day Tristan didn't hide under his desk when the SRO came. The school resource officer came.
The vast majority of kids in this age range are not brought into our legal system, are not charged. There's a small subset of children that do end up getting charged, and disproportionately this is Black, brown, and low-income children and families. When we do that to this group of kids, it really has a really significant negative impact on them, on their families, and on the broader community.
By age 13, Tristan's aggression had nearly dissipated completely. His emotional self caught up with him. It was almost like a switch where one day he just stopped.
The vast majority of children in this age range who engage in behaviors that could be criminalized do not need formal system intervention to be able to move on, not return to this type of behavior, that it's developmentally normal and actually developmentally necessary.
It's impacted him pretty severely. He is not as outgoing. He really struggles still with trust.
There's a lot of things about this law change that give me hope. The decision was made at the legislature and signed into law by the governor that we're going to treat elementary age children as children.
We have to do better at meeting our children where they're at. Locking them up is never the answer at that age.